So I spoke with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so many times about this question, and I got it so many times and was told to make a video about it so many times. So in my opinion, obviously as the title suggests, the niqab, the hijab, whatever, and the other part in that title, which we will also talk about inshallah later. But for now, so the whole hijab thing, right? Is it wajib, as in mandatory, fard? Or is it, optional, whatever? Some arguing that it's not in the Quran, some arguing it's not blah blah blah, it's not stated clearly, so it means it is this, it is that, right? Well, let's dive into those Quranic verses first. Okay? So, beginning with Surah An-Nur, Ayah 31. Notice here. And tell the believing women to lower their gaze and guard their chastity, and not to reveal their adornments, except what normally appears. We'll focus on that in a second. Let them draw their khimar. That word is very important. Over their chests, and not reveal their hidden adornments. Right? Except to their husbands, blah, 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 blah. So, with that, obviously the famous thing, number one, is what is this khumur? Or plural, khimar, I think. Right? Well, here's the thing. During 7th century Arabia or something, at the time, the women wore this. Because, it's in the desert, guys. So it's to protect them from the heat, the sun, etc. Even, I think the men were also wearing it, but not like the women. Obviously, you get the point of what I'm saying. Like, have you seen those people that are out in the desert? They wear headscarves to obviously shield themselves from the sun, etc. The heat. You get the point. So the women were wearing this. However, here is the important distinction. Remember, you know how we do this from Allah's reasons, following the prophets, etc. Anything else, that's innovation or whatever. And you'll see why, subhanAllah. So, about this. How they used to wear it, for context, they were wearing it, throwing it around their back or shoulders. The way they would wear those headscarves, right? Throwing it back to their shoulders. Which means it doesn't cover their necks, collarbones, chest. All of those were exposed. That's how they were wearing their khamar. Headscarves, whatever. So that's why Allah said, tell the believing women to draw their khamar, what they were wearing at the time, over their chests. So Allah is saying, instead of throwing it around your back, throw it around your chest. So that way it covers everything. Because when you throw it around your chest, it will cover your neck, and it will cover your ears or whatever, and it will cover your chest. Right? SubhanAllah. Now let's go to the second Quranic verse before we get to the important parts that we need to discuss here. SubhanAllah. So, Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 59. Allah's telling the Prophet, O Prophet, ask your wives, daughters, and believing women to draw their cloaks, which is jilbab, over their bodies. But notice the keywords Allah is using. In this way, it is more likely that they will be recognized and not be harassed. Once again, so what is the context for this one? You can see from the keywords, Allah's clearly referring to a specific thing that is important here, which is what? Back then, and obviously even to this day, women get harassed on the streets. When they go out in public, they get harassed, stared at, whatever, right? We know this. So, again, during that time, they were wearing another thing, abaya, jilbab. they were wearing this during the Prophet's time, just like the scarf thing, the khumur or whatever, right? So Allah is saying, take that jilbab, use some of it to cover your bodies. But notice the key word. So he's essentially saying cover yourself. But notice the keywords, so that you will be recognized. So this is something very important. Now we get to this before we talk about what it is about hijab and niqab, etc. in my opinion. Okay? So, the whole khumr thing, what is hijab? What is niqab? Right? Those did not exist. Well, they existed, but let me be clear what I mean. It is not the tools Allah told you to wear. Allah, you can look at the Quranic verse, notice the way He's talking. He's saying, take what you're already wearing and cover, instead of covering your backs, what they used to do with the head covers, and cover your chests, your collarbone, your necks, right? And also said what they were wearing during the time, which is the jilbab, or abaya, I guess, to cover themselves, their outer parts, their outer garments, their cloaks over their bodies. But still that they get recognized. Now here's the number one thing. Niqab, which is a face veil, it makes you unrecognizable. So that's a key word right there in the Quran. Allah said, that's why I'm saying pay attention to the word Allah said. That makes you unrecognizable. The way you recognize anyone is by looking at their face. No one can deny this. If you can only see someone's eyes, you cannot identify who that person is, or who that woman is in that case. Right? So niqab is not a command. SubhanAllah, it has nothing to do with it. Now, the hijab. Going back to that other statement that is very important and we said we'll talk about, which is, what is except what normally appears when Allah said in Surah An-Nur? What is except what normally appears? There have been a lot of debates about this. Okay? However, Ibn Abbas, but more importantly, Aisha herself, radiallahu anha, the Prophet's own wife, said it is the face and hands. Again, notice what I said. The face and the hands, except what normally appears. Therefore, except the face and the hands. SubhanAllah. What does niqab do? It covers your face. Just saying. SubhanAllah. Which makes you what? Unrecognizable. So, why are we taking Aisha's word more than anyone else? And other than those scholars that said, no, it's fard for niqab or whatever, etc., right? Because she's the Prophet's own wife. She was one of the most prominent scholars. Men would literally learn from her. In fact, she dissected a lot of hadiths that were misinterpreted, even mislabeled. Like the hadith we talked about before, those hadiths that are demonizing women, right? Like the one about the 3 bad omens, a horse, a house, and a woman. Aisha got so angry that she lashed out, I think, at Abu Hurairah and said the Prophet never said such a thing. He said, may Allah curse the Jews that say that those 3 bad omens, blah, 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 blah. So notice how context is so important. It's not because Abu Hurairah had ill intentions. It's because he came to the room at the second the Prophet already said the last part of the hadith. He didn't hear the Jews part. So he thought the Prophet was saying that. Do you see how context is so important? SubhanAllah. So if Aisha herself, the one that literally lives with the Prophet, doesn't have to hear him from out of context places or arrives when he's already talking, but rather lives with him, says it means the face and hands, it means the face and hands. Subhanallah. So with that said, why did I stress so much about the part where Allah said, take what you have and cover yourself with it? Because to me, that speaks of a massive, very important context that we need to understand, in my opinion, which is, it's what you have available to you. As long as you preserve your body, your chest, your neck, your hair, as Allah commanded, you're doing it right. It does not mean you wear a hijab, something like a rigid uniform, or you wear a niqab, or you wear whatever. And niqab, it covers your face, which means you will not be recognizable. So that goes against Surah Al-Ahzab. Also, the fact that even in that part where Allah said, except what normally appears. So don't cover your face. Allah literally said, don't cover your face. Niqab covers your face. Subhanallah. To basically, I guess, give an example of what I mean by it's not the tool, it's the command of Allah saying what you have available to you. For example, let's go stupid, okay? As if we haven't already been going stupid at this point. Subhanallah. If a woman has a surgical cap, let's go with that, you know what? A surgical cap, right? It covers the hair. And let's say it's not transparent. And for the sake of this example. Then they are already fulfilling one requirement of Allah. They're covering their hair. It does not mean you have to go wear a specific thing called a hijab. It means you have to cover your hair, you have to cover your neck, you have to cover your collarbone, and you have to cover your chest. And don't cover your face or your hands. It's about modesty. Subhanallah. That's my point. It's not the tools, it's the modesty aspect of what you have available to you. Now, yes, we can say, well, that's what we have, Ahmed. It's a hijab. That's what covers the hair. We call it a hijab. Yes, understandable. But it's not about the tool itself, is my point. Whatever you have available to you that can cover your hair, that functions as a hijab, if you want to call it that. Get the idea of what I mean? Subhanallah. And here's another thing about the niqab thing, right? Because already what I'm making is obviously something crazy. So subhanallah. With the niqab, during the state of ihram, during Hajj, the Prophet explicitly said, because again, during the time some women were wearing face veils. And it was during the, hold on, before I get to that, sorry. Here's a better, stupider example than what I said about the surgical cap. For example, you live in a winter place or whatever, right? You have a beanie available to you as a woman. A beanie covers your hair. You have a long coat. You have a long coat that covers your body. But now it's the neck. And you have a scarf, which a lot of winter folks wear, right? So now your neck is covered, your hair is covered, your body is covered. Is that a hijab? No, it isn't. Is that a niqab? No, it isn't. It's what you had available to you. That is fulfilling the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you get the idea now of what I mean by the whole tool thing? Subhanallah. You can look at the Quranic verse yourself, and in my opinion, it makes sense. Subhanallah. So back to the hadith thing about the Hajj, right? Some women were wearing face veils. This started way before Islam. In the Middle Assyrian Empire, or whatever it was. Okay? As well as ancient Greece, Persia, and the Byzantine Empire. So this was before Islam. So naturally, of course, those cultural norms are going to seep into when Islam came. So some women were still adopting those ancient norms, right? Wearing niqab. So the Prophet ﷺ, in that hadith about Hajj, said what? Explicitly. Take off their niqab and their gloves. Because I won't bore you with the details, but basically before Islam, it was a status symbol. The niqab was like a status symbol thing during those empires. And I think something along the lines of slaves and prostitutes were not allowed to wear them or whatever. It was a status symbol, alright? It wasn't religious whatsoever, the niqab thing. SubhanAllah. And as you can already see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying what? They need to be recognized so they don't get but also not get harassed. And the part about accept what normally appears, Aisha radiallahu anha and Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, confirming it is the face and hands, but most importantly we care about obviously Aisha radiallahu anha. So the niqab is not even an option because it doesn't make you get recognized. SubhanAllah. And the hijab, niqab, whatever you want to call them, those are tools. The whole point is, Allah said, as long as your hair is covered, your neck is covered, your collarbone, and your chest, you're good to go. Whatever it is you have available to you. SubhanAllah. So in other words, guys, the real question we should be asking is not, is hijab fard, is niqab fard, but rather, is covering my body, my chest, my neck, my hair, fard? Yes, it is. With whatever you have available to you, but they have to be covered. SubhanAllah. Whatever you choose to cover them, but they have to be covered. SubhanAllah. And again, before someone says, well, Ahmed, technically speaking, the hijab is still what's going to cover those things anyway. Not really. As I said back in the winter thing, if you have a beanie, that covers your hair. A scarf, which is a thing that happens, right? They wear their scarf and wrap them around their neck, and they're wearing a long coat or whatever, that covers their body. That functions and obeys Allah's command. SubhanAllah. They use the tools that are available to them and use them to cover themselves with. SubhanAllah. It's about dignity, modesty. SubhanAllah. Not cultural practices that seeped into our Islam. SubhanAllah. Ameen.